Hi, everyone. Welcome to ZTV Live. I am your host tonight, Grace Arnold. And we always encourage people to interact, ask questions, give their comments. And tonight is a very fun show. We have Matthew Robertson, who is the artistic director for the professional vocal ensemble, The 13.
Hi, Grace. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today and to talk about the 13 and some of our upcoming programming.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you for being here tonight. So we'll just run through some questions. And so you're a conductor for the 13. So tell us how you got into conducting, because it's really not every day that you meet someone who is a professional conductor.
That's right. I think, I, like most conductors, knew at a pretty young age that we wanted to conduct. I started playing the piano when I was 3 or 4, and then violin, cello at a later point. And it was really sort of 13, 14 that I knew that I wanted to conduct. And then, of course, went to conservatory for music after that, and then sort of began working as a conductor. And that's a trajectory that you'll see is pretty common among conductors. Most conductors will figure out that they're excited about the craft early and pursue it. And in fact, growing up as a native Washingtonian, some of my early teachers were also Washingtonians. So Norman Scribner, who for many years was artistic director of the Choral Arts Society of Washington, and J. Riley Lewis, who for many years was music director of both the Bach Consort and the Cathedral Choral Society. Those were two of my sort of earliest conducting teachers. And so it's nice to be back. I've been back in DC for a number of years now, but it's nice to be back in this city where I feel so steeped in its musical heritage.
Oh, absolutely. And the city is glad to have you back. And it sounds like you have been studying conducting for a while. When did you decide to create the 13?
Well, so it was after I'd finished my graduate studies in Princeton, New Jersey, when I and some of my other classmates got this idea into our heads that we really wanted to form an American and East Coast-based professional vocal ensemble, usually with a relatively small number of singers, to perform music at really the highest level that we could achieve. And I think it was a combination of youth and hubris that made us think that we could do it. And that was in 2012. And since then, the group has changed a bit. We've moved home to DC, and while we started really looking solely at early music pre 1750, we now perform and music from all time periods, incorporating different genres.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And so you said you're a professional East Coast-based choir, but the people who are in this choir, who are members of the choir, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are international performers?
Yeah, that's right. So the 13 is based in DC. This is where our offices are, our board is. This is where we perform our concerts. But our singers come from all over the country and indeed all over the world. A number of them are based in the DC Baltimore area, but we have singers and players who come from as far west as San Diego and as far east as Bergen, Norway, and as far south as Puerto Rico, and, well, I guess, again, as far north as Bergen, Norway.
That's incredible. So everyone's really all over the map globally, and I'm sure just steeped in culture. So how has COVID affected the construction of your choir and like how you practice and how you perform?
Yeah, and it's interesting, in normal times, the way that we work is we send out the music about ahead of time to our musicians, and then we come together in DC for usually about 3 days of rehearsal before a concert. And, of course, prior to COVID, we had all of our personnel booked, not just for the spring of 2020, but also for the fall of 2020 and the spring of 2021. So, like everyone else, we've had to make some pretty substantial changes, but we've made it a priority to continue to provide high quality musical offerings for our audience here in DC, while trying to make music with as many of our musicians as we can. So while that's meant we haven't been able to, really bring in musicians from, say, Bergen, Norway, we've been working with the musicians that we know and love here in the DC area. And while maybe we haven't been able to assemble as many musicians as we had hoped, as many musicians as we had planned, we have still been going forward with our concerts. In as early as June, we put on our first live streamed only concert with 4 musicians total. And then in September, we performed a concert titled Not for the Sun I Sing, which featured music by women composers with 6 performers total. That was sort of an unusual experience to be performing that concert of women composers on September 18th, the same day that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and to be the one to announce to our audience on the 18th her passing was certainly a place that I never imagined I'd be in, but certainly brought some added relevance to the music that we were making. And then in October, we performed a concert titled Sorrow to the Stars, and that was with 9 people total. And so, is that right? Yeah, that's right. 9 people total. And so we've been sort of gradually expanding the number of people we've been working with, but we're cognizant that our first priority is keeping our musicians as safe as is possible. So we've employed tactics like quarantining, social distancing, testing, masking, even while singing, which is a particular delight. To be able to perform and gather as safely as we possibly can.
Of course, safety is absolutely number one, especially in these times. And you said you launched your first virtual concert back in the summer. You have an upcoming concert December 20th at 5 p.m. This one will also be virtual. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So on Sunday, December 20th at 5 p.m., we'll be performing a concert titled An Evening of Readings and Carols. And so this concert will feature many of your audience's favorite Christmas carols from the holiday season. I was sort of, as I was planning this, it occurred to me that at this time of year, we can always use some joy in our lives, but particularly during this public health emergency that we find ourselves in, this joy of the season is a particular balm for our audiences, we hope. And so in addition to the 13 performing a number of Christmas carols, we've also paired that with readings from poetry that tell the Christmas story. Incorporating poets like Sarah Teasdale, Margaret Gooding, Maya Angelou. And these readings will be read by 3 notable Washingtonians. One is Doreen Gensler from NBC4, Bill Bukowski, who's the on-air host of WETA, will also be doing another reading. And then lastly, Denise Graves, who's a wonderful, internationally famous opera singer, who's performed at the Washington National Opera, Metropolitan Opera, and many others, will be giving a third reading. So this melding of the holiday story in song and in word is just such a beautiful pairing, one that the 13 has experimented with in the past, and one that we look forward to returning to in this year unlike any other.
Sounds like a lot of time and effort went into preparing this concert and preparing this theme, and it sounds like it's going to be just what everyone needs this holiday season. But so it is 5 p.m. December 20th. How can people purchase tickets for it or find the link for it if they want to view it virtually?
Great question, and thanks for mentioning that, Grace. So while this concert is at on December 20th at 5 p.m. Unfortunately, due to the public health emergency, we can't invite any of our audience to join us in person. So it will be live streamed only. The musicians and I will be performing live and in person, but our audience will be invited to join us at 5 p.m. on Sunday the 20th via live stream. And then for the week that follows, our audience will be able to watch the concert or rewatch the concert on demand. And the way to find out more about this concert and to purchase tickets is to visit the 13's website at www.the13choir.org/concerts. And again, that's www.the13choir.org/concerts. And I think it's probably also scrolling above my head.
That's right. So a reading of evenings and carols is the theme. It'll be mostly Christmas carols accompanied with some poetry, as you said. And this theme it's clear, it's obvious, it's seasonal, it's Christmas. So what are your inspirations for your other themes that you typically perform?
Great question. So a number of our concerts are thematic, but not all of them. Looking broadly, the 13 performs a real variety of music from the 16th century through to the current day, with the majority of what we do being either pre-1750 or post-1900. And so a number of our concerts will be thematically informed. For instance, our October concert this past year, titled Sorrow to the Stars, was looking at the ideas of transfiguration and what it meant for there to be transfiguration in music and transfiguration in literary ideas. Similarly, some of our other concerts have also traced an extra musical idea through different time periods and across different genres. However, in March this coming year, March 27th, we'll be performing a staged, which means sort of fully acted out and memorized performance of J.S. Bach's beloved oratorio, the St. John Passion. And so while some of our concerts will be thematically organized, others will just focus on one composer or one longer masterwork, such as the St. John Passion that I mentioned, or such as, in May this year, we're performing a concert titled Monteverdi, The Lost Mass. And what we've done for this concert is we've assembled much of Claudio Monteverdi, the famous Italian Baroque composer's late works together in one mass. And so we've really delved through the archives to find this wonderful material and put it together. So I'd say that about half of our concerts are thematic, half of them really look at one particular era of music history or one particular composer.
Perfect. So there's a little bit of everything in there for everybody. And you have some upcoming concerts scheduled already. And what have been some of the responses from audience members and your performers from doing the virtual concerts?
Yeah, I think that our performers are really grateful to be able to make music, to be able to work together. They're all freelance professional musicians, and so there have been so many concerts that have been canceled. There have been so many organizations who have canceled concerts, not even tried to make music during the pandemic. So I think that our musicians are generally really quite grateful to be able to make music together in a way that feels quite safe. And our audience, excuse me, our audience, I think, is also really grateful to be able to hear live music. There have been other performing arts organizations who, during the pandemic, have put together some content, but most of the time that's been pre-recorded content, or they'll just take a recording of a past concert and send it out to their their audience. And so we've taken a different path in trying to provide live music. My thinking being that we want to be in this moment with our audience and performing for them in the moment. And I think that they've really appreciated that. The other thing that's nice about the virtual platform is that we found that some of our recent concerts that we've been live streaming have received a much wider listenership than our normal concerts. So for instance, when we would normally perform in DC, we'd limit ourselves to a DC area audience. But since we've been live streaming, we've been having people listen from Tokyo to Italy. And that's sort of been fun to hear and see.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. It sounds like while you might have lost the in-person aspect, it's still live music, which even if it's virtual, live music is still so different than listening to it over your iTunes account. And you've kind of garnered this international following, this international viewership. So what does that mean, bringing live music back for you and for the 13, having acquired all of these different viewers around the world?
That's a great question. I think that one is, just despite the COVID-19 pandemic, our hope is and plan is to continue to perform all of our concerts live, even though we'll be live streaming them. When it does become safe for us to welcome audiences back in person, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later. We watch the vaccine news too with cautious optimism. But when it is safe to welcome audience back in person, I think it's likely that the 13 will continue to live stream all of our concerts, in part because I think the world will have slightly changed. There will be a little bit of an expectation that concerts will be available not just in person, but also through live stream. And then also, we do have an international following. We are continuing to develop that, and we want to make sure that those people are involved in the art that we are trying to make.
Absolutely. That sounds great. And I can't wait until the day that I can go in person and see a live musical performance again. And I'd imagine for you that conducting is different without an audience. So what has that been like for you, conducting through the COVID era?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the bows are very different because, of course, there's no applause. So it feels a little odd at the end of a concert to turn around to the camera and sort of virtually accept appreciation. So that's definitely bizarre. But the combination of social distancing and mask wearing really makes communication among performers very different. So I think that when we're performing live and without sort of these public health measures such as masks and social distancing, we rely on so much from our ears and our eyes. And from our ears, if somebody who we used to be 3 feet away from is now 10 feet away from us, it takes longer for that sound to arrive. And so it requires a different set of skills to make sure that you're together and in tune and things like that. And then from the visual standpoint, we take so many visual cues from people's faces, and as singers, so many visual cues from the movement of the mouth. And especially working at the highest levels, you're taking so many cues about when things happen, but also about what kind of vowel are we using there. And you can look at people's mouths and match vowels and match a lot of other things. And so in that way, it's become a little bit more challenging during the pandemic to achieve that really, if I may be immodest, sort of world-class level of art making.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I never really thought about like the distance performers are from each other, all these technical aspects of performing not classical music, because there's a whole genre. There are multiple genres within the classical music field, but within performing in a vocal ensemble. And now that I'm talking about genres, I know that there are a wide range of genres within the classical umbrella. So would you say you have a favorite genre that you like to conduct or hear your choir perform?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think that within classical music there are a ton of subgenres. There's orchestral music, there's opera, there's chamber music, there's solo piano, solo violin, etc. And so I think that the subgenres that we occupy and spend time in are normally, chamber choral music, and then something called oratorio, which means generally relatively early music, 1750 or prior, that features both instrumentalists and singers. And when you look at what the 13 does, most of what we do is either pre 1750 or post 1900. And what we do pre 1750, much of that is from the oratorio genre. So, I mentioned Bach's St. John Passion. I mentioned Monteverdi, The Lost Mass. And I think that that's a genre that is really near and dear to my heart. I think it's incredibly visceral music making within the classical genre. It's powerful, it's moving, and it's incredibly natural. And then if you look more recently, there's a number of composers in the 20th and 21st centuries that the 13 loves performing. I think of Francis Poulenc, who is a wonderful French composer writing in sort of a modernist style. And then if you look even more recently, there are composers like the American Caroline Shaw, who I believe won the Pulitzer Prize in 2014 for her Partita for 8 voices. And, Caroline, along with one of our other favorite composers to perform, Ted Hearn, living composers, they both bring in a bunch of different musical inspirations into their music. So while it's still part of, the classical umbrella, which is a very broad umbrella, they do bring in concepts of jazz, concepts of gospel singing, concepts of folk singing that one might not find. This is one of the things that I find to be particularly interesting about trends in new music right now, is that many composers are really interested in a melding and a bridging of genres. And this is something that appeals to me, and I think appeals to a lot of audience, a piece that might be written in the classical idiom, but bringing together a lot of diverse genres, jazz, gospel, folk. And so I'm hopeful that we'll continue to see composers writing in these in these idioms, and I look forward to continuing to perform them.
Yeah, that's very fascinating, and it sounds like classical music really has a style to appeal to anyone and everyone's tastes. And so this upcoming concert, you said before, it is Christmas carols. Can you give us a little bit of a hint as to what we might expect to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you should expect to hear a relatively, if you have a favorite Christmas carol, chances are that it's going to be reflected on this concert. You should expect to just be bathed in the warmth of the Christmas story. A few that come to mind right now are, of course, Silent Night, which is a beloved carol, The Holly and the Ivy, O Little Town of Bethlehem, just to name a few. And as well as, some that might not be as well known, In the Bleak Midwinter, while some might know that, others might not. And then some pieces that are sort of more classical pieces around the Christmas story. I mentioned Poulenc earlier. Well, we'll be doing a piece by him titled Hodie Christus Natus Est, which is a lively early 20th century piece on the Christmas story.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure everyone else is. Can you repeat one more time for the viewers how they can purchase tickets to view the concert?
Yep. So tickets are available on our website at www.the13choir.org/concerts. And if you don't get the /concerts part, you'll be able to figure it out when you get to www.the13choir.org. And tickets are available for the live stream concert itself on Sunday the 20th at 5 p.m. And the same ticket is also available to watch the performance on demand for the week that follows.
Perfect. Thank you. And so what are you most looking forward to about this upcoming concert and evening of readings and carols?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of sharing warmth, sharing joy, and sharing beauty this in a holiday season that has seen too little of all three of those things. And I look forward to performing this wonderful music with our musicians as well as our special guests, Doreen Gensler, Bill Bukowski, and Denise Graves.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing it. Matthew, if you have any final thoughts or comments that you would like to leave us with today, please share.
Oh, Grace, thanks so much. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking with you during this time. I'm grateful for this time together, for your listenership, your readership, and I do hope that some of them will choose to tune in to our concert and evening of readings and carols. And I would normally say I look forward to seeing you there. And this year I won't see you, but you'll definitely see me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matthew. And again, tickets are available online, the13choir.org/concerts, December 20th, 5 p.m. It will be available through a virtual link and then on demand all of the following week. And if you haven't already picked up your December issue of The Zebra, you should go do that at any of the red Zebra newspaper boxes we have throughout Alexandria or some of your favorite local venues. There is an article in there about Matthew Robertson and the 13 and their upcoming performance and evening of readings and carols. Matthew Robertson, thank you very much again for being here tonight and sharing everything with us about the 13 and about this concert.
Thanks, Grace. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Have a good night. All right, so that is it for tonight's episode on ZTV. Next week, we have, on Monday, it's Living on Music with our own music man, Steve Hauk. Steve welcomes Billy Coulter, a singer-songwriter who straddles the line between roots rock and power pop. Tuesday, on Reading, Writing, and Ralph, author John Wazowitz returns to ZTV to chat with our literary editor, Ralph Peluso, about his new book, Slater's Lane. On Wednesday Wellness, Dr. Lauren Fisher of the Delray Wellness District will be joined by Dr. Eleni Bousalis to discuss her new podcast, Why Does This Keep Happening to Me? So tune in to learn about mindful ways to move throughout the holidays. And then Thursday, it's the Virginia Amos Show. Virginia's guest is Megan Ferran of Alexandria & Co., a boutique jewelry store in Old Town. So we hope that you will join us for those episodes next week. But until then, remember to be the good news in someone's life.